Here we go.
Good morning, Judy.
Hi, Lisa. How's everything going?
It's going.
It's a
I
beautiful
think
sunny day.
it is. We got some good rain, and I'm waiting for my grass to green up because things are looking pretty brown around here.
Oh, they're looking nasty on my street. The rain made a difference, but we could use more.
I love how you're looking outside the window, as you say that, because you're sitting in front of a window.
I am.
And it always reminds me of a grandma who, Grandma Doris had her recliner next to her window, and she knew everything that was going on in the neighborhood. And you kind of strike me
Your
as,
grandma used to look out the window by the washing machine. There was a window, sideways window that looked down the street, and she would lean up against the counter and look out that window. That was her window of spying.
the women in the know.
That's right. She
Yes.
always kept me posted because I could have cared less.
Crazy. Okay, so
Okay.
um today I thought, with this new jog that our podcast has taken,
Mhm.
it has now been renamed as Overcoming Writer's Block. And
Mhm.
last week we talked about why a person might want to have a life coach to help
Mhm.
them overcome writer's block. And I thought, whoa, whoa,
Mhm.
whoa, 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 whoa. Let's back up a little bit. I want to
Okay.
make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to writer's block and what
Mhm.
it is, because
Mhm.
I think it can mean all different kinds of things for lots of different people. And writer's block doesn't just happen to writers. Writer's block happens to anybody who is engaged in the creative process.
And it even happens to writers in certain areas. Like I have no trouble writing our blog posts. I have no trouble writing other things, but there are areas where I still have block.
Yes, yes. So I went to all the Googles to start my exploration of the topic. And according to Google, writer's block is simply the inability to think of what to write or how to proceed.
Hmm.
Very simple.
Google University does it again.
And I think the simple answer is right. So let's say you are a teacher and you need to write a classroom newsletter. You could
Mhm.
definitely have writer's block there. Where do you start? How do you begin? There are so many things you could write about in a
Mhm.
newsletter. What's going to be the focus? How do you even begin? I think is something that a newer teacher might be struggling with. Have you
Exactly.
in any of your jobs ever had writer's block?
I have. I've had writer's block in the early days. I would sit down with my boss every morning and he would say, okay, these are the things I want you to focus on today. And this is the priority. I want you to write a letter to the realtors in town and invite them in to talk about blah, blah, blah. And I'd look at him blankly and say, what do you want me to say? And he'd say, well, that's why I want you to do it. I want you to, you know. And so, I mean, I didn't want to argue with him because he was kind of a feisty guy. And so I'd go sit down at my desk and I'd think, what in the hell am I going to write? And usually I could tease it out of myself because I knew I'd get in trouble if I didn't get it
Mhm.
done. But stuff
Part of
like
your
that.
gig, yeah, part of your job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other area where I get so blocked is personal correspondence. And,
Mm.
I think part of what it is there is I think I feel like my life just isn't interesting enough. I don't know what to put down, and these people are writing all these glorious, wonderful things. And my life is pretty much different day, same shit, kind of thing.
Same
It's
shit,
like,
different day, as Michelle always
yeah,
says. Yes, I
yeah.
totally get it.
I mean, it's like, what am I going to write about that would be interesting to this person? So
Are you
I think
talking about like real letters in the mail?
No, I've gone to email for the most
Okay.
part if I have an email address, but if I don't, then I do like note cards. I don't really have stationery anymore, but I have note cards that I'll send to people. And sometimes if I have a lot to write to them, I'll do an attachment and I'll do it like a piece of stationery, with my name and address and stuff on the top, and then I'll do like a
Wow.
fashion letter, but I'll send it by email.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Um,
And
yep, what do you say?
I was gonna say, I just hate it when I send off a response and then they answer right away, and it's like, "Oh, shit, I just finished this. Now I have to do it again," Yeah, it's an area of block because I can't just go off like I do when I'm writing about an event or a topic or a something. That those are my thoughts and I don't really judge those.
Mhm.
But when I'm writing to somebody about my life and what's going on in my world and all that, it's like, oh man, what do I want to say or how can I be interesting? I guess that's the other thing. I want it to be
Mm,
interesting, but I don't want it to be preachy. I don't want to lecture. I don't want it to be boring. And so I just don't do it.
mm. And I think that is really the um when we talk about the underpinnings of writer's block, I think that
Mhm.
there are really it the problem is really based on self-criticism.
Mhm.
What you
Oh.
just said, you want to come across as somebody who is happy and
Mhm.
interesting and this and that and the other thing, and you're feeling like you're not up to the game.
Mhm. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll be in a better mood tomorrow or I'll think about it and then I'll have more to say and it's like and I never do. So,
Mhm.
yeah, and really that's an issue because I have people say to me, "I haven't heard from you in forever." And people take that kind of personally,
Yeah.
so I just feel
Mhm.
bad about that.
Mm.
Um, so it's something that is one of my areas to solve, and
Mhm.
maybe I need to come up with a bullet point response or I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe we'll figure it out in this podcast.
I think I don't think it's going to happen in the
I
one
don't mean
podcast.
today, but I mean over the
Over the
maybe
course.
tomorrow, over the course of the
Mhm,
weeks. Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Because I
I
mean,
hear
like
you.
I say, I think if anybody says, "Oh, I never have writer's block," if you really look at the areas of your life where writing would be very useful or helpful, I would venture to say we all have writer's block somewhere.
And I think that writer's block, we call it writer's block because we're talking about
Mhm.
writing, but I think creative block happens,
Mhm. Mhm.
in other professions when you're feeling like there is a pressure, the self-induced sometimes pressure to be
Mhm.
creative, whether you're
Mhm.
an artist or creating your business or whatever you are creative at, you
Mhm.
can feel blocked because of that self-criticism. And
Mhm.
so writer's block is simply the nuance that we're constraining to right now. But
Mhm.
being blocked, I think, is being blocked. And you can be you can be blocked in all different areas of your life.
Well, as I said, as we talk about that, I know that we've talked about self-criticism, and I think that's very appropriate. But I think stress, and that can be self-induced stress. I think that would be one of the areas. But for me, it happens when I'm overwhelmed.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I think sometimes I remember talking about my brain one time with a therapist, and I said it's like a slot machine, and I've pulled the handle, and all the things are spinning, and I don't know where I want it to. I know where I want it to stop, but it never stops there. And so it feels like stop, slow down, too much, overwhelm, and that's kind of how my mind gets when I'm stressed.
Mm. Okay.
So for me, I have to first thing I have to do is calm my little butt down,
Okay.
my
Mhm.
big butt down. Yeah.
Well, and I actually wrote down, I think when we talk about self-criticism, it can be broken down into at least four different things. And the first one
Okay.
is stress. That's the
Oh, very
first
good.
one that I
Mhm.
had. And I think when I think about stress, I always describe it similar to what you said with, the slot machine. I always think of that circus performer that has the sticks with the plates spinning on the top. And how many plates can you get spinning at the same time? You know
Mhm.
what I'm
Or the
talking about?
juggler with balls in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I feel like exactly there are just so many moving parts to what's going on in my life right now. That's
Mhm.
creating this sense of overwhelm. That's
Mhm.
creating a feeling of I don't even have the bandwidth to give the energy to the thought process, and I let that be my excuse for not creating what I want to create.
I think that's true. And, you can call it an excuse but I think it's really a reality. It's not something you're just making up because,
Hmm.
when I'm that stressed, when I've got that much going on, I mean, what I probably is I'm saying it out loud and I'm looking at this as a mini little coaching session. I probably need to find a way not to lose the thought that I want to do that, but
Hmm.
maybe make a reminder somewhere important where I can come back to that, really come back to it, not just put it out
Hmm.
there for the future in some unknown area far away in space.
Hmm. Um, and I think that is one of the glories of coaching, isn't it? Because
Hmm.
you are making a commitment to
Hmm.
yourself
Hmm.
by getting a coach and
Hmm.
saying, I know that I need help with this because my life is so crazy and so full and so many moving parts that if I don't if I don't get somebody to help me with this or keep me accountable or help me work through the messiness of this, I'm not going to accomplish this thing that's really important that
Exactly.
I've told myself
Exactly.
is really important to me.
Yeah, I think that's true. My husband was a great example. He was a phenomenal writer. He could write. I mean, he wrote stories, he wrote uh, life things, he wrote all of this. But when he passed away, he hadn't written any legacy writing at all.
Mm.
And,
Mhm.
if I hadn't, he and I talked a lot, so I will probably have to fill in some of the blanks there, but I still am
Mhm.
not going to know all of it.
No.
But I think that was because he was focusing in one area, but not so much focusing on that area.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think you said the next one was lack of focus, didn't you?
Yeah, lack of focus is
Mhm.
the second category or second thing I came up with when I was thinking about self-criticism and being blocked. And that's lack of focus or vague thoughts. You kind of have this sense of, I want to write a book about, my life or this thing that happened. But but you don't constrain. You don't
Mhm.
make a commitment to either the process or the topic or the genre, or you're letting things stay in the ethos,
Ethos, yes.
okay, instead of constraining.
And I think that happens a lot today with we're so busy with Facebook and computers and children and places and things and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's really hard to say, okay, I'm handling everything that's urgent, thank you, Stephen Covey, but I'm not handling what's important. And
Mm,
if you identify what's important,
yeah.
I think you have a responsibility to figure out how can I focus on this for X number of time every day.
Because if you don't, it won't happen. I mean,
Right.
if you go to somebody's, you meet somebody, you're at a neighborhood shindig, and
Hmm.
they talk about, a project that they're working on, and you think to yourself, jeepers, I'm writing this book. I'm writing about this thing. And if you actually sat down though and evaluated how much time you actually devote to this thing, which is supposedly so important to you, it might be shockingly little.
Shocking. Yeah, I think shocking. And if you're a person like me, who is a person that loves to talk about the things they do and want to do,
Mhm.
if I took the minutes that I've talked about it and explained it and got excited about it and made it
Mhm.
sound so wonderful
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
balanced it with the minutes I actually worked on it and
Mhm.
helped it to become a reality,
Mhm.
I think we know how that. See my hand, you can't even see the other hand.
Mhm.
It would be way out of balance.
Well, and I think too, one of the things that happens for lots of people is maybe there are several moving parts in, let's say, I want to write about this event in my life, but there was also this other event that was really cool that I should write about too. And so
Mhm.
you have a number of things that are like bubbling in your brain.
Mhm.
Instead of saying, okay, I've got three things I want to write about, I'm going to start with this one and just put the other ones on the back burner. They're all kind of like sitting in the forefront, waiting to be worked on. You can't work on, you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything you want.
Everything.
And so you need to
I
pick.
read that one time too in a book you gave me.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
So, once again, deciding, having a plan, constraining, because in the short term, you can only do a little bit, but it's by that action, that moving forward within the constraint that's going to help you
What
create
was the
something.
quote we read the other day? Small parts done every day add up to big progress. Something like that.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you work on something for 10 minutes a day, but you do it consistently every day and you do not fail, you add that up over time and you can accomplish great things.
You can. Okay. So that brings us to the next thing. We've talked about stress, lack of focus. The next one, fear.
That's a good one. What do you think about fear?
Oh, I mean, this one can go in so many different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is I think sometimes there can be a little fear that sabotages the whole project.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you take a fear of, oh, I just don't know, my Aunt Sally was really important in this event that I want to write about. But if I write about it, I have to have Aunt Sally in there, but I don't want to piss off Aunt Sally. So should I write about it? Shouldn't I write about it? How can I write it? So you start having this problem.
Second guessing yourself.
Instead of starting your writing and then, problem solving when the Aunt Sally part comes, or, getting the story down and then, okay, now what am I going to do about the Aunt Sally parts in here? Because something needs to change because I don't want to hurt Aunt Sally and I don't want to hurt Aunt Sally's kids. And I don't, I don't want to be sued by Aunt Sally.
That old litigious Aunt Sally, huh?
Yeah. So I think fear, that's one example. Any other thoughts on your part about fear and how that stops us?
Well, I think sometimes it's fear of self disclosure too. You're afraid that if you disclose something about yourself, ooh, how are people going to look at that? Or are they going to think less of me? Or are they going to, write me off their friend list or something? Um, and it's hard to know how other people are going to respond to who you are, but I think at some point, um, that can stop you if you think that's going to cause a negative event in your life, cause drama, that kind of thing. So I think that can be another thing you need to deal with.
Or the fear of one of your, let's just call her Lauren. Let's say you think about Lauren. If Lauren reads this or knows that I wrote about something in my life and published it, she's going to think I'm all that. Fear of what just random people are
what
going
other people
to
are
think.
going to think. And I think so many of us operate a life where we make decisions based on what others are going to think about us,
for the good or bad. Or and I think what's so interesting about that one, I think people have talked about this over and over again. It's such an inflated sense of our importance in somebody else's life, because really the fleeting thought that Lauren is going to give to me and my writing is probably laughable.
No. It's probably like my little chipmunk out here. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I think I had someone say to me, who died and made you the center of the universe? And it's true. People don't really care that much about me and what I say, and it's not going to be an everlasting issue. So you want to come up with ways to just perhaps go on instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then the last one in under that fear of that self-criticism umbrella is motivation. So we talked about stress, that lack of focus, the fear category, and now the last one, just general overall motivation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and help me with how we got started on motivation. I can remember talking about it and adding it, but I think, sometimes, I just don't have time to do that. I'll do that tomorrow, and it could be procrastination, but it also takes the form of motivation. It's like you need to be motivated and decide. And you said a big word, commitment, made to make a commitment to the fact that you are going to follow through with what you say. And then, are we talking about the lying to yourself? Was that part of motivation or
Mm,
not? I
well,
think one of the things we mentioned, it's kind of like the little boy calling crying wolf,
that's it. Ah,
we we can say to ourselves, you can have said to yourself for the last 30 years, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to make this work and it's going to be interesting and all that kind of thing. And then you don't do it. And then you don't do it again. And then you don't do it again. And pretty soon you don't believe you. And so when you say it, your little subconscious mind is going, oh, here she goes on that again. That'll never happen. We don't have to worry about that. But
mm-hmm.
it's true. If you tell yourself often enough and you don't follow through, you don't believe it. So that motivation isn't going to be there.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, you hit it right on the head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real, I think very common because, I mean, like I'm thinking of movies where the sweet young thing has got the dramatic and moody boyfriend, and she's supporting him, and he's writing, but he's really not writing during the day. She's supporting him, and he's like, talking about this great book that he's got this thought of that he's always
Mm-hmm.
being driven to create. But in the scheme of life and things, he's just deluding himself and his girlfriend. But
Mm-hmm.
that, I mean, in a fictional world, I think it also happens in our reality where
Well,
we
when
talk
it's depicted in a good movie, it's happened in reality as well, because that's why it appeals to us, right?
because we recognize it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep,
And
exactly.
I think we're the talkers, but I think lots of people have maybe a secret, and maybe by our age though, a secret desire or wish or longing to create something that maybe
Mm-hmm.
has been on the back burner. And now when you get to a certain age, maybe there's just a feeling of, yeah, I had this great, I always dreamed of one day doing X.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
I
got
haven't
caught up.
done it up until now, so I'll
Yeah,
probably never do it.
the opportunity is past.
That ship has sailed, as they say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can be if you want it to be. But
Mm-hmm.
if you kick yourself in the ass and say, no, that is something that's on my bucket list. There's no better time than the present. Maybe I've retired, or maybe I just now there's no better time than now to do it. And I've heard this podcast and it's like, holy shit, this person is speaking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can help me too. I
Time to
can
get started.
time
Time
to
to
get
get started.
started. No better. eh,
Put the
Yesterday,
pen on the paper.
yesterday was the best, but today is, it's okay to start today, right where you are. There's
Mm-hmm.
some kind of quote about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Starting projects.
Yesterday, yeah, exactly. Yesterday is
The
guy
best
got,
time to start something was yesterday, but
oh,
yeah, you don't want to put it off. But today is as good as day as any to start it.
today's the best.
Hmm.
Sunday,
So
Saturday, time to
yeah.
write.
So I think the next time we get together, we'll start talking about some strategies to get over BPS,
Blank page syndrome.
writer's block. Exactly.
I like
So
it.
yeah, I've
Okay.
got a bunch of different strategies that people might find helpful. And I thought we'd just kind of maybe go through them one by one, and
See
hopefully we'll
where
be
it
able to help some
goes.
people.
You
Exactly.
got it. Well,
And at the end of this, I'll also put some links to Sidetracked Sisters and
mhm,
where you can go if you want to get your stories down and published,
mhm.
or if you have a relative maybe that is struggling to get their story down, we can help that person.
Mhm.
Or you can go to Lisa Hoffman Coaching and we can start with some goal setting and look at where you want to go and how to get there. And we'll get your brain to get over this self-criticism so that you can move forward and your brain will work for you instead of
Sounds
against
like
you.
this Sidetracked Sisters is just a one-stop shop, doesn't it?
One-stop shop. We
I
can
like
cover
it.
it. We got it covered this way, that way, and the other way.
You got it. You got it. Well, Lisa, that sounds like a great place to begin next time.
I think so. Okay. Love you, Judy.
Love you too. Have a
Okay.
great weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.